All right, guys, this is Jamey. I'm back for another installment of the orchestration arranging ideas. This is Arranging 101. The second part of it now focuses on harmonic development. You should be experimenting with your melodies using some of the techniques in the last lecture to help you work on your melodies and make them into something really artistic, something individual to how you would write and arrange melodies. This focuses on harmonic development. I'm going to do really two different things here today. We are going to make harmony more complex in a bunch of different ways. Some of them simple and some of them a little bit more complex. And then we are going to also make chord progressions simpler through two different techniques. Also, we'll talk a little bit about chord color, okay? I'm going to put these notes and a handout, the actual musical examples for what I'm going to do on D2L so that you can download those and look at those. Okay, here we go. I'm going to pull up my finale file. Now this is going to look a little bit different than what you have on your PDFs that I gave you because it actually is a piano score of what I have on there. All you have really is chord symbols and a melody. And that's okay, because when you're thinking about this, sometimes that's all you really need. Let me play the first little bit of this melody. And really what I have here is a very diatonic 1-4-5 kind of setting for it. You can see what I chose as my harmonies. These are what you would probably play in class piano. I'm sure you all have fond memories of that. Okay, that's pretty functional, right? Nothing harder really than maybe a 6 chord and a 1-6-4 to a 5 chord. Now, the second kind of approach I'm going to take to this is finding spots where I can put in secondary dominants. I also do call this kind of in a jazz arranger's terminology, tonicization. What that really means is using dominants to provide a moving forward of the harmonic motion. But notice now the harmonic rhythm is really faster. Okay, with these, look, here's a 5-4 to move to the 4 chord. Here's a 5 chord where there didn't used to be one. Look over here, I have a 5-6 going into that D minor. But notice some of these different techniques that we're using here. For instance, look at this right here. I have an A7, which is a 5-6, but notice the melody note, we have an F on that chord. So I knew I couldn't have a pure A7. I had to change that to an A augmented 7. It's kind of a nice sound. So we're starting to get a little more color in the chords just from doing this. Then I have a 5-5 over here, just a periodic little shot of that. Over here again, another 5-4. Now let's look over here, and this is, you can look at this on the sheet I gave you. Here's something where I use a jazz technique. It's actually called tritone substitution. Instead of doing a 5 of 6, here we're going to the 6th chord, D minor. I don't have an A7, but if you think about it, the 3rd and 7 to an A7 is a C sharp and a G. Well, anharmonically, those are the same notes as the 3rd and 7 for an E flat dominant 7, G and D flat. We're just dealing with anharmonics. You're going to hear that this really throws a little bit of a shot of tension into the music, just for one beat. But sometimes that's all you need. All the other things here, another 5 of 5, it's pretty self-explanatory. Let's listen to how this sounds. Okay, that's pretty nice. Still sounds pretty functional, doesn't it? But now you have a little bit more added activity. You now have chords changing at least every measure, if not twice a measure. So the listener is getting more activity harmonically. Now remember, we said last time in the melodic variation lecture that you can stretch out these melodies. So remember, when we do that, it affects the harmonic rhythm as well. So think about how these two go together. Now I start using some passing chords, passing diatonic chords, kind of walk downs in the bass line. I'm still using some of the added dominant chords, secondary dominants in here. I like this one right here. On the 4 chord, I move down through the diatonic triads of the key from 4 down to 1. See if you like that. It's kind of gospelish. And this tune definitely has a lot of gospel connotations. Some of these chords, I'm just walking up in inversions. I'm walking from the root up to the 3rd and then to the next chord. So we'll see if you like that. I throw a lot of spice here in towards the end and see what you think of that. So these are just some more passing chords, diatonic chords and inversions, walking up and down through bass lines. So we have more harmonic activity in this, don't we? It's starting to get a little more complex, and that walking bass line or the moving bass line through some of these inversions gives it some real motion that we didn't have before. You can even do more with that. Probably lots of different things we can do. Here's the next one. Here we're talking, actually, we already did work with this a little bit. If you go back to the last example, we already were doing oblique motion. What's oblique motion? It's when you have a voice holding a long note and then another voice moving, right? One voice stays the same and another moves. That's basically what that is. And you can have different levels of this going on. Here I do it, I'm kind of hinting at a technique we're going to use in one of the next examples is modalism. So notice this F holds in the melody, but the chord is changing. Here I do it again on the 4 chord. I change the chord, the melody note is holding. I also use suspensions. Suspensions are a great sound, and you should think about experimenting with them. Now, if you think about it, we're starting to get even more compact with our harmony. We move chords, the harmonic rhythm changes almost every measure. We have 2 different chords. So you see how things have gotten more complex. And that's a different experience for the listener. Let's listen to what I have up here. I'll be curious to know what you think about this movement from F to E flat. By the way, really what that is I'm thinking in F mixolydian for a little bit. If you combine those 2 chords, the scale that results is really the F mixolydian scale. Okay, I really like that one actually. There's one measure where I put some really nice special sauce in there. It's right here. I'll let you look at that if you want to see what I do there. Okay. I'm really putting some inner voice motion in there that makes it almost so I have 3 chords for that measure. All right, let's go on. This one is going to be probably the most radical one I have here. And I'm really getting away from the intent of the melody and of the song. But, you know, I'm just experimenting, right? And that's what you're going to do. This is parallelism. You'll notice that I start on the F triad. The melody moves up a major third and back down the major third. Well, what happens? My chords do the same. Actually, I misspelled this A chord. So I'm going to change that. Correct those notes. Sorry about that, everybody. Kind of did this very quickly. So you can see where these are planing. I invite you to look at some of these structures. Here on the 4 chord, the 5th is in the melody of the chord, right? 5th on a B flat. I move down a minor third. Well, so does the chord. Moves down to a G. This is going to be a different sound. Here I have minor triads planing. Again, I'm just experimenting. Let me show you what I'm doing at the end of this, though. I'm using contrary motion, and that's where I move the bass line up. Bo, 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 do, 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 do. Here the bass line's moving up while the melody moves down. It's kind of a nice technique. Once in a while when you do that, it may not work out with your inner harmonies, but sometimes you can kind of shoehorn those harmonies and you end up with some really unique things. I'm starting to get some more sounds like major 7s in here. And here's an E flat 6. I use a deceptive cadence on both cadences. And you can experiment with that too. Why not? See what I mean? Maybe not, but there's some interesting things in there. Might be just 2 measures that I'd like to use in my arrangement. Okay, this is an example now where I'm going to the 2nd category. I'm simplifying through repetitive chords and pedals, okay? Repetitive chords really means that I'm thinking of modalism. I'm finding 2 different chords that the melody fits over. In this case, I start the original melody was in F, right? But I'm using really the chord, first chord is the relative minor. I go up a half step to an E flat major, Now notice the melody suggests it has an A in it. So that's really what we call a sharp 11 or sharp 4. This repetitive pattern works for all the chords. I could keep it going, but it kind of got old by maybe the 5th or 6th measure in. So I go to a deceptive cadence. Now on the last part of it, I use 2 different pedals. And to experiment with pedals, all you really need to do is realize that there are 2 pedals that work in tonal music really well. A pedal on the 1, so I do an F pedal, and I put all sorts of different chords over the top. There's a rule about pedals. Pretty much anything goes, right? If you have a solid pedal going on, anything you do above it will be tension. So almost any of the diatonic chords of the tonality can work over it, whether it's a 1 or a 5 pedal. Look at the end, I use a 5 pedal, a C down in the bass, but I put a 2 and a 2 and a 5. So they really sound good. Notice I have another deceptive cadence. I don't know that I particularly care for that one, but I can always find a different one. So let's see how this works. Now notice this first time, this is the first time I have more of a different kind of accompanimental pattern. Really up to now, I was using very homophonic kind of chords. This now has kind of a piano accompaniment. Boom, 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 something you would hear a pianist use. Now, if you want, go to the internet. I posted an example of a piano arrangement that I wrote that Dr. Nadgir is playing. You can listen and look at some of those piano accompaniment ideas. Here we go. Okay, so there are a lot of ideas I like in every single one of these. And what's really cool about this is that now you have a bunch of different ideas that you can go on. So sketching like this in this very simple format is something that is very valuable to me as a composer, as an arranger, because it's thinking about smaller bits of information and thinking about the bare bones elements of the song. Here's what I want you to do. You all, by next week, should have a really good idea about what your melody and your harmony is going to be on your arrangement. Okay? Now, after that's done, I will kind of help you through doing a piano accompaniment for this and thinking about what that accompaniment pattern might be. Is it going to be something that's going to be more of a boom chick or a sort of almost polyphonic 2-part sort of approach to your tune? Is it going to be chordal and homophonic or like a chorale? That's something that you need to start thinking about now. Okay, good luck. Study hard for your percussion exam, which is on Monday, and start thinking about this. I'm going to keep on posting more materials on the D2L website, and you have to keep up with that. If you keep up with that, you'll be okay. I'm going to grade your brass exam projects this weekend, and you'll know more about what those grades are. Thank you very much, everybody, and have a good day. I hope you're all staying healthy. Bye now.